Former President Trump at a rally in Florida this weekend appeared to acknowledge the existence of tax schemes that the Trump Organization and its chief financial officer are charged with, while denying that they are crimes.
They go after good, hard-working people for not paying taxes on a company car. You didn't pay tax on the car or a company apartment. You used an apartment because you need an apartment because you have to travel too far where your house says you didn't pay tax, or education for your grandchildren. I don't even know. Do you have to? But does anybody know the answer to that stuff?
Trump telling the crowd that every company does, quote, fringe benefits, and mocking New York prosecutors for pursuing the charges. And of course, this is not the first time that Trump and his associates have seemingly admitted wrongdoing.
We're supporting a country. We want to make sure that country is honest. It's very important to talk about corruption. If you don't talk about corruption, why would you give money to a country that you think is corrupt?
Like, look, this is a corrupt place. I don't want to send them a bunch of money and have them waste it, have them spend it, have them use it to line their own pockets. Did he also mention to me in the past the corruption related to the DNC server? Absolutely. No question about that. But that's it, and that's why we held up the money.
What you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happens as well.
We do that all the time with foreign policy. I have news for everybody. Get over it.
So you did ask Ukraine to look into Joe Biden?
Of course I did.
You just said you didn't.
And you want to cover some ridiculous charge that I urged the Ukrainian government to investigate corruption. Well, I did, and I'm proud of it. Having something to do with paying some Stormy Daniels woman $130,000, I mean, which is going to turn out to be perfectly legal. That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through a law firm, and the president repaid it.
All right, let's talk now with political analyst Maggie Haberman. She's a Washington correspondent for the New York Times. I mean, Maggie, we see this pattern of the president kind of self-owning things, admitting in this case, essentially, the merits of the case, even as he downplays them. Why does he do this?
So, Brianna, I think that, excuse me, former President Trump has a very long history of conflating legal issues with public relations issues, right? And basically that tape that you just showed, some of which related to the Stormy Daniels payment, which was made by Michael Cohen, the president's former fixer and lawyer, some of which was related to the impeachment investigation, the first one, into the former president, and some of it is obviously from this weekend. All of those, if you take them together, it's, yes, I'm just going to repeat the charges out loud and say there's nothing wrong with it, say that everybody does it. The difference here is, A, an indictment has been filed. In the case of the campaign finance charges, former President Trump was not facing charges of his own. That was Michael Cohen. In the case of impeachment, that was impeachment. That was not a legal proceeding. This is a legal proceeding where not just, Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump Organization, has been charged with crimes, but so has the Trump Organization. And so now you have the former president sticking to this traditional playbook of his, which is, I'm going to talk about it out in the open. He's still under investigation, and he no longer has a shield of prosecution. Now, he may not ever get charged, but what he's doing, which is saying, these are things that everyone does and these are fringe benefits, prosecutors are saying these are not fringe benefits, these were compensation, and these were not tax. So what he has just done is basically acknowledge that, yes, he was making these payments. He's trying to argue they were for something else, but most lawyers would tell somebody connected to a case like this, the less you say, the better. That's just never his style. He always believes he's going to convince someone. He's taking a risky gamble right now.
Well, I mean, as you point out, he's no longer sitting president, so he's not shielded from prosecution. His lawyers might be going crazy as he replays this PR book, but does he understand that his comments have real legal consequences, potentially in a way they didn't before?
Look, he has been told all of this, and it's not that he doesn't understand. It's just that he continues to believe that he is the person who is going to be able to explain it better. The problem is that he is dealing with a New York case in Manhattan. There is going to be, if this goes to trial, there will be a jury. There will be a jury that will likely be less predisposed to see things his way than, say, Republican senators in an impeachment trial. So it's not, I don't think, John, that he doesn't have cognition of it. It's just that it's, in his mind, he is his own best fighter. And again, when you spend however many years it is now that he's been doing some version of this, 50 almost, where you are basically sort of conflating a legal issue with a public relations issue and a press issue, he is convinced this will be no different, and we'll see where it goes.
And so, you know, these charges, they have to do with the Trump Organization and his top money man, which obviously hits close to home, but it's not him. There is part of the indictment, Maggie, that mentions other people who are not indicted, at least not yet, who receive these quote unquote fringe benefits, which are actually income that should have been taxed. I wonder, how concerned do you think Donald Trump is for himself and also for his family members who possibly could be those other folks who receive benefit?
Oh, I think very, Brianna. There was an enormous amount of concern about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, among people around the former president, among his lawyers, among some of his advisors, that possibly his children were going to be targets. Now, there's no reporting to support that, but they're basically looking down the line at who the DA might try to put pressure on to testify against the former president, and that's where it went. Again, there's nothing in the reporting to suggest that's the case, but that is how they are viewing it, and I think it says a lot about the mindset. Look, what prosecutors are clearly looking to do is apply pressure to Alan Weisselberg. You know, Alan Weisselberg has given no signal that he's going to cooperate, but it does appear, and again, I'm saying appear because we don't know what else they have yet, right? And they obviously did a lot of court work to try to get hold of thousands of pages, millions of pages of documents related to Donald Trump's finances. But what they're trying to do is get a witness who can testify to some of this, to talk about intent, to talk about the motive, to talk about why certain things were the way they were. As far as we know, they don't have that yet. And if they don't have that, it is better for Donald Trump, it seems. But again, we don't know what we're unaware of in terms of the cachet of their information, and we'll just have to see. The former president is obviously very worried. If he weren't worried, he wouldn't be talking about it at a political rally.
Ellie, beyond those comments there, Trump at that same rally defended the practice, in effect, right, of taking what might normally be income, calling it a fringe benefit, quite large ones, in fact, paying private school tuition in New York for grandchildren, a rent-free apartment in New York, and therefore shielding that from taxes. I wonder, can his comments be used in court?
They absolutely can be used against him in court, Jim, and I pity Donald Trump's lawyers here because I guarantee you their advice to him was, don't talk about this case. Have your rally, but don't talk about this case. This is a bizarre statement by Donald Trump because on the one hand, it's a partial admission. He admits the core facts that, yes, we paid people off the books, and no, we did not pay taxes on it. But it's also, he's trying to build the platform for his defense. And his defense is going to be either, I didn't know that was happening, or I didn't know that was illegal. So he's already trying to litigate this case through the media. Ultimately, unfortunately for Donald Trump, who's not charged yet, but for anybody who is charged in this case, these cases get litigated in the courts, not in rallies.
And his company, by the way, the organization Beyond Weisselberg. Margaret Talev, politics involved here in the president's comments. What political advantage does he see in making this case?
Yeah, Jim, I think that's right. The legal strategy, while sort of curious, you can see both sides of it. The political strategy is much more clear-cut. It is discredit as a witch hunt the case against Alan Weisselberg and the case against the Trump Organization, and also tap into this really interesting strain in Republican politics right now, which is to be anti-IRS. This has been in the works for many years. It preceded Donald Trump's presidency. It lives on after it. But we're seeing now a real anti-tax sentiment in the party. And we're seeing it play out even like in the infrastructure talks, right? Trying to figure out how to pay for a $1.2 trillion bipartisan compromise. Part of that is idea of spending $40 million more on the IRS to help them boost enforcement so that they can get $100 million back. So many Republicans opposed to this. So Trump is also tapping into a strain that resonates not with all of the Republican base, but with a sizable chunk. And I think that combined with the legal strategy helps you understand where he's coming from here.